That's the one thing about our audience. They always want a new guy to break through the glass ceiling.
All you have to do is just be real.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. I am the jabroni beating, pie eating, trailblazing, eyebrow raising, talking is done, you're out of your class, no sleep till Brooklyn, The Rock whips your ass. Woo!
I wish you and King would quit talking.
And welcome to Around the Ring, episode number 68. It is Sunday, October 23rd, 2016. You know, it has been a bizarre year. We have a reality show host who is running for president, who is a major nominee, and by God, the Chicago Cubs are going to the World Series. Can you believe it, Floyd?
I can't believe it. I do say congratulations to the Cubs. I have a lot of friends that are Cubs. My sister is a lifelong Cubs fan, and when I was very, very young, I have a fond Cubs memory. My favorite player was a player named Sean Dunston for the Cubs, and he was a shortstop, and I remember used to watching every Cubs game just to watch him play.
Very nice.
While I'm not a Cubs fan, I am rooting for the history, and I'm rooting for my people that have been Cubs fans, long-suffering Cubs fans.
Well, yes. One thing I thought was kind of cool is when you looked at the landscape, and I don't follow sports, I really don't. Baseball was the one sport I was into as a kid, and it was interesting looking at this batch of the four teams that it came down to. It's like, oh wow, for the longest time, all four of these teams have really sucked. That's nice. It's nice when you get a whole bunch of teams who aren't in there, because Lord knows, do we really ever need to see the New York Yankees in the World Series again? Probably not.
I was going to say, there's something to say about history. So I do like when some elite teams are coming in, but today, this year is a nice change of pace. Whether Cleveland or Chicago wins the World Series, you're going to have a group of long-suffering fans finally coming out of it and finally having a champion. And then you'll have a group of fans that says, oh, I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, pretty much. Man, when I got into baseball, I was in, I think, 6th grade, and I got into it through baseball cards, of all things. And at the time, we had cable, and really the only games, at least where I was living, that you could consistently find on television were the Chicago Cubs on WGN with Harry Carey doing commentary, and the Atlanta Braves on Superstation TBS. And so I've seen, over the years, many, many games from both of these teams, mostly from the Cubs. I liked watching Cubs games, primarily because I've always been a lifelong St. Louis Cardinals fan, and so Cubs were kind of like my second favorite team because A, I could watch them, and B, Chicago was close to St. Louis, relatively speaking. So yeah, I think it's very cool. And actually, the Cleveland Indians are one of my favorite teams in the American League. So this one's going to be hard. It's I don't know who to root for. It's like, yay, someone's going to win that hasn't in a long time.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I will find myself watching some of these World Series games, especially down to the clinching, because it is. I mean, in 50 years before I was born, they were talking about when the Cubs and when the Red Sox were going to win the World Series. 50 years before I was born, it was a long time. So after I was born, and I got to my 20s before anyone saw the Red Sox win a World Series. All the people that were alive the last time the Red Sox had won a World Series, unfortunately, had long passed. And then, no one is still alive that saw the Cubs win the World Series, unfortunately. So we're at this time where we're a big section of history in our lives as far as when it comes to baseball. And that's the one thing about baseball. Is as far as sports, our longest running history in the United States. So these are definite significant occurrences when it comes to the Cubs winning or even the Indians winning.
Yeah, agreed. Now, for those of you who wonder, Floyd does have a guest there. He is on location because he has been hard at work. Last week after the show, he went off to Tulsa's WizardCon and got to meet a couple of really cool people, stand in some lines, be around a bunch of nerds. I'm very jealous. Tell us about WizardCon.
All right, Friday night, WizardCon in Tulsa. I got to meet, again, Becky Lynch. I think this was the fourth time I've actually got to meet her. She's always very nice, and her personality it's very similar to mine. When you get her on a subject that she likes, she gets very excitable, and you can just see very much the kid come out of her. She really likes to eat and talk about food. She loves food. It's the weirdest thing. She started talking about rice cakes with chocolate chips on them and putting peanut butter on top. And it just seriously, it sounded like a 7-year-old talking about like candy. It was one of the cutest experiences I can say I've ever had, because it was just she was just so into talking about candy and stuff. And
so real quick on that note, I'm as a fat man, it makes me very sad and jealous to hear skinny people, especially skinny, supremely hot people, talking about how much they love to eat, because I can't do that. I eat too much, and I've got a lifetime's worth of enjoyment of food, which you can see every time I walk into a room. And so very jealous. But sorry, I just had to throw that out there. I was
gonna say, she eats and then goes and works out, and then she is a wrestler for a living. And if you follow her on Instagram or Twitter, you'll see she does a lot of the protein bars and the healthy brownies and stuff like that. She does, and her big thing that she said, she loves salads. She loves the taste of salads. That is an affliction I do not have. So I can honestly say, if you like healthy food, even if you're very passionate about it, you won't gain the weight that we gain. I like really decadent food, personally.
I do like salads, though I'm a little saladed out at the moment. Sometimes I can overdo it on salads. I'm also a sucker for the Mexican food, and I do like Italian food. But I digress. So again, what all you got to meet Becky again?
Yes, yeah, we took her picture. We got her throwing up the club sign. That was cool. She had her title with her. She talked a little bit. She was very vague. She said, as far as her non-wrestling injury, she had to get something taken out, and she actually feels like she could wrestle now. But the WWE is making her wait until November 8th.
Well, that's probably a good thing. I mean, it's better. It's so much better to be safe than sorry with these folks.
Yes. So we were very intrigued on what that was. We speculated a lot of things, not anything that I'm going to put on the podcast, but it was very much kind of fishy, because no one will say what it is. So you wonder.
Like a tumor or something. Like
maybe. I don't know. She said I had to have something taken out. And it was very much a rush emergency type thing, so I was interested. It always makes me interested, because WWE is pretty open about injuries.
Yeah.
And they seem to be really vague about this one.
But if it's one thing to be really open about an injury, like when Finn screwed up his shoulder in that match. Yeah, we watched it happen. It's another thing where you have something medical go down when you're not at work. It's, as much as these people are in the public eye, that's really none of our business.
It really isn't. It isn't. And like I said, it's just intriguing to, in this world of over-information, when somebody has information they don't want to share, it makes you want to know that much more.
I know, I'm super curious, but, she is someone I respect a great deal. I would say probably in-ring talent-wise, she is probably the best women's wrestler WWE has under contract. And I'm saying that, and I'm including Sasha and Charlotte in that list. I think they are both fantastic. I think Bayley's fantastic. I think Asuka's fantastic. But Becky Lynch is a special kind of talented, and
she's the most consistent wrestler that they have.
Oh yeah, yeah,
and that is one of those things. The love she has for wrestling comes across in everything she does, especially with the arrow and the straight fire thing. It's just, I do have an interesting tidbit because she's really into steampunk, and a lot of people have felt like she hasn't went all the way with steampunk. I'm one of those people, and she actually made a point to let everyone know the reason that she doesn't go all the way is because the costumes would be impractical to wrestle in.
That makes sense. That makes complete sense. And I remember when she first busted that out, I was like, "What the heck?" But now I'm glad that it is. It's something that comes from her personality. It's something that she likes, and that to me I think is important when they're able to, wrestlers are able to bring that aspects of their personality into either their ring gear or their theme music or whatever. You see that with Sami Zayn, the scally cap that they sell, which I really want one of those, the Sami Zayn cap, because that was a cap he just had for years, and so yeah, I love it when that's able to when you really get a sense of that's who these people really are. So anything else from the Becky front?
And from the Becky front, no. I can honestly say she's just a really genuine person. A lot of her character is her. So it's just her, I wouldn't even say turned up. It seems like it's a less goofy version of her. She seems very fun and goofy and down to earth, and she's pretty hilarious.
Did she remember you?
She didn't really. She's like, she said it's good to see you again, but there was nothing I wouldn't say there was anything to say she remembers me. There's this one guy, and actually it's a new podcast that I've actually picked up. He's met her 8 times, but every time he meets her, he brings her like candy or flowers or something or something to make himself stick out. And these 2 girls that come with her actually wrote her a little poem with a bunch of puns in it, telling her that they were looking forward to her getting back. What is their podcast is called Scheduled for One Fall.
Oh, nice. Okay, I'll have to check that out.
I thought that was a really cool name, so that's why I started giving it a listen. It's the format was kind of funny because it's similar to ours, but a lot more pop culture references as far as their thing is they blend pop culture with wrestling.
Oh, nice, man. That's I have to say when you first started describing the guy, he's like he brings her flowers and candy. There's a part of me that went, ooh, stalker. That's a little creepy.
No, he's just a really passionate. They really love Becky. They were also at the Finn, and they did actually cosplay for Finn, and it was pretty cool.
Awesome. So speaking of, you met Becky and you met Finn. Did you meet?
Yes.
And were there any other, before we get into Finn? Were there any other wrestlers there?
There were no other wrestlers there. I would have definitely met them if they were.
Okay.
What happens at the Wizard Cons is generally they get 2 wrestlers, 1 male and 1 female. Last year we got lucky because The Undertaker actually signed his agreement outside of WWE with Wizard Con. So we got The Undertaker, Seth, and Charlotte. So that was...
Okay.
But this year, we just got... we got Finn... Finn and Becky, which I thought both of them, since have been announced, both of them have been injured, and they still did it, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. So tell us about what you learned with Finn.
Finn, picture thing was cool. He did we hit up the club. That was awesome. He's very just a happy guy. When we were doing the autograph signings, he signed with his injured arm. He's right-handed. His right shoulder was messed up, and he was signing. It was still a good sign. My friend Rusty Simpson went with me, and he is probably the biggest Finn Balor fan I know. So he had 6 items signed.
Good Lord.
He gave him the sweet spot of his NXT belt, and he told him, you know what, you're the only person that's going to sign in the area. I literally saved this for you. Finn took it upon himself to put longest running NXT champ, and then he put the number, I think it was 292, and then he signed his name, Finn Balor. And he does this thing with his autograph where he actually draws a little bit of the demon face under his autograph.
Oh, that's cool.
So he did that for him. On my NXT Special Edition Finn figure, he wrote "Too Sweet" and then signed it. And then on my belt, which I had him sign, he signed his name, gave the smiley face, and then wrote "Hi," which is kind of funny.
He seems like in the Breaking Ground show, you could really tell that he is, deep down a complete and total dork. And,
yes.
And that I think that is so cool because it's so rare when, and not to stereotype good-looking people, but really like stupidly good-looking people that are just absolute dorks and totally okay with that is so nice and refreshing.
Yeah, I can definitely see why him. I mean, I know he trained Becky and there's history there, but doesn't mean you have to like him. I can see why they get along so well. They are very much a similar person. Finn's a lot more quiet than Becky. You have to goad Finn into talk more, except if you're talking about wrestling, which we had a panel with him later, and yeah, he's open to talking about wrestling.
Oh, nice. So, how's his injury coming along? Did he say?
The doctor says he's ahead of schedule. The goal was the doctor had always put the goal at WrestleMania, but he wants to be back for the Rumble, but he feels if the doctor tells him 2 more months of healing will buy him 10 more years in the long haul, he's going to take the 10 years.
Oh, yeah. God, yeah.
So he's going to take that extra 2 months. He has made it very clear. He made it very clear yesterday that the guy he wants when he comes back is The Undertaker at WrestleMania because that window is closing.
That would be, man, you tell you what, an Undertaker entrance and a Demon entrance.
Yeah.
That would be great stuff.
An announcer said it could be the battle of who could have the longer entrance, and he actually laughed. I did get a laugh out of Finn Balor because he was talking about being the Universal Champion, and he said, "I got to go after Kevin Owens." And I was like, "You mean?" He said, "The Universal Champion Kevin Owens." I was like, "Excuse me, you mean the longest reigning Universal Champion Kevin Owens?" And he cracked up. He actually had to take a moment before he could continue.
Okay, that's awesome. That's
so that was cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, but there was a lot of really good questions. He was very open. He only had 30 minutes because he was jumping on a flight to Ireland within like an hour of after leaving us. He was basically leaving the con to go to Ireland.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, but he answered. He stayed. He made sure he answered everybody's questions. Of course, there were a lot of good questions. There were a lot of bad questions. Unfortunately, I am no person. I hate the dream matchup kind of questions. Would you think would win out of this person and this person? We're at the point where we're all smart. We all know that, it's basically who the writer says wins. So I don't understand the purpose of those questions. But even the kids, even the little kids know, and they ask smart questions, it's awesome and sad because I feel bad that they don't get that. They don't get that. Is it real or is it not real moment? Because when I was young, it was real. It was amazing, and I didn't love it any less. And when I found out it wasn't real. But it's just like I feel like kids should have those few years of thinking it's real.
And to be honest, I think in the back of my head, I knew it was scripted for many, many years. But it was, even during the NWO years, there was a part of me that was like, why would someone fake this? This has got to be real. I'm just trying to convince myself as a 20-something-year-old man, this has got to be real. Yeah. So what was the best question and the worst question that Finn was asked?
Rusty. fielded a great question, basically asking him what his favorite match was with New Japan, and it was at the beginning of the Bullet Club, right after the Super Juniors. He had a match against Gedo, that's Gedo, for the junior title, and he says that was the first match where he felt like the Bullet Club thing was getting over. The whole Western aspect of doing run-ins and stuff was really getting over. And he made a good point about face and heel dynamic. He says, in his opinion, that the heel and face, no matter where, has to come from somewhere. And he felt like the heel dynamic for the Bullet Club, when he came up with the idea of the Bullet Club, was that he was really frustrated in his spot in New Japan and Japanese wrestling, and how that they were only, and this kind of me adding to it, but it was more of a feeling that they were only pushing certain type of people and the bigger guys. And the New Japan, when he went in the Bullet Club, it did open up the door for a smaller wrestler to compete with the larger people.
Yeah, that is true. I think isn't Gedo, isn't he the booker also for New Japan?
I don't know. I could not answer that question.
I thought he was.
I do not know as much about the backstage aspects of New Japan. In that way, I like it because it does come off more as a shoot for me.
That is something they do really well, because for one, with the whole strong style thing, those guys are really beating the utter piss out of each other.
Yes.
And in fact, there will be a couple of New Japan stars in our top 5 this week in my list. No, so what about the worst question he was asked?
Worst question was Finn Balor and Shinsuke Nakamura against the New Day, who would win? And that came from an adult, and I was so annoyed by that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was the worst question. And he's like, which part of the New Day? And the guy's like, the New Day. And he's like, no, there's different combinations. And he's like, Kofi and Big E finally. And he dragged it out. And he said Shinsuke could probably beat them both up by himself.
That's probably true.
I laughed. And I was like, yeah, Big E is an impressive specimen. It would probably take a lot to actually hurt him.
True. But I get the feeling Big E's like this huge, hulking dude. In fact, when this is just to preview a little bit when we get into our top 5 list this week, and it's our top 5 guys who look like they would legit kill you. Big E's one of those guys who is, he's an impressive specimen, and he can probably take a lot of punishment, and maybe it's just some of his personality, but you look at him and you don't think, he's going to kill me.
Yeah, it was, I think it's, since he became a member of the New Day, the hip twirling. There's nothing intimidating about a man that shakes his hips as much as Big E does.
Man, that is entertaining. You know who else, though, I thought about, I almost put on my list, and I said, no, I can't. Braun Strowman. Because that man has such a baby face. I don't care that he's Sasquatch. I don't care that he's got a bellowing scream. I just look at him like, oh, you look so cute.
It's he, and I completely disagree with that. I saw him at WrestleMania on accident. I was just walking, and I looked to the left, and I literally backed up 5 steps because I had never seen such a big human being in my life.
Then I will defer to you on that. But,
yeah, I was like, I've seen a lot of wrestlers. I can count on my hand how many times I've had that impression.
Wow. Okay. Well, I wonder if he'll be on your list. We'll find out later on. So, now, what else did you go see while you were at WizardCon?
Man, I saw a lot of stuff. There was a lot of great artists there. I picked up this new comic. It was called Tits, and it's about a drunken cabbie and his navigator cat in space that drive people from planet to planet. So it's like interdimensional. I forgot what the tits actually stand for. It was very much an acronym. But I got to talk to the artist, and he told me about it. And I told him, you grabbed my attention, so I'm going to buy a comic, which is rare because it is the third comic I ever bought, first two being Deadpool. And I told him, I was like, I guarantee no matter what's in here, you're going to be in my top 5 comics of all time. And you might be my worst comic of all time. So,
that's
so
hilarious.
he got a kick out of that. I was like, I'm more into the comic book movies and TVs, but this just looks very interesting. It had a grasp, and you could tell he was very passionate about his comic. It wasn't like, oh, I just did this to try to make a buck.
Nice. Now, is he from Oklahoma, or is he from somewhere else?
I did not ask that. I didn't get into the more personal side. Again, and even in life, I kind of try to keep kayfabe to a certain point.
Okay.
I'm like, hey, do your creative process. I don't want to know so much about you. I see where the characters came from. So I haven't read it yet because I was really, really, really busy yesterday. But I will definitely take time to read it today.
Nice.
And if it's really good, you'll hear about it on the show next week.
Okay.
If it's bad, you'll never hear about it again.
And I saw pictures that you met Luna Lovegood from the Harry Potter series.
Oh my God, Ivana Lynch. She is the tiniest woman I've ever met. And this is saying I've met Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks. But she's the tiniest woman I've ever met. She's maybe 5'1", 5'2".
Wow.
And if she's 100 pounds, it's like 101, 102. So small. And it's me and Rusty, and I don't know, Rusty's taller and wider than me, so he's 6'3", I'm 6 foot, and we're these huge dudes, and she's right in the middle of it. So it was kind of funny. But she seemed very nice. I only did the photo out with her, so I got no real personal time to talk to her. But she seemed very nice and very happy to be there. Also got to meet Christy Carlson Romano. People might not know her face, but you probably know her voice. She was Kim Possible on Disney's Kim Possible. She was also where I became a fan of her. She was Ren Stevens on a Disney sitcom. It was Shia LaBeouf's debut. Yes. It was called Even Stevens. She played his big sister, and she was a genius and neurotic and all that kind of stuff. And she was very cool. I was always like my age, because we're around the same age, very attracted to her, of course. Then she was actually, when they did Beauty and the Beast on Broadway, she was the first Belle.
Okay.
She can sing too. She's very talented. I actually bought that CD for Broadway to listen to, and I didn't even know it was her. And I found out that it was her, and she had a very successful run on Broadway, and she was just very genuinely nice. She was super pregnant. She was like 8.5 months pregnant. She's due in December.
Oh, wow.
And she was there taking pictures and autographs, and you couldn't tell that if she was uncomfortable, you couldn't tell. She was very much a soldier in that case.
I always wondered if she was at all bitter because of all of because she was that first era of kind of Disney stars, at least of the modern era, and after her came Hilary Duff, who had a lot more mainstream success. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Dog technical difficulties, folks.
Yeah, that's my dogs. This is why I don't record at home. This is absolutely why I don't record at home. Hold on a second. Come on.
Okay, we're back. Sorry, folks. We had some dog issues there. But we were talking about Christy Carlson Romano, and I was just asking the question. I've always wondered if she is at all bitter, because she was on, and then as her show was winding down, Hilary Duff's show started, and Hilary Duff became this semi-big star, and then after that were all of these Disney stars that just blew up big time. and became big. You know, they had big singing careers. They've had big acting careers. And here was this one who's very talented, and like you, I think she's very pretty, and a really good actor, can sing. And it's like, I've always just wondered if there's a part of her that's like sits back and goes, "Motherfucker, that should have been me."
I follow her on Twitter, follow on Instagram. If there is, she does not let it off. She's very, she doesn't come off as bitter. She comes off as a very, very happy person. She does have an interesting tie to wrestling. She considers John Cena one of her best friends.
Interesting.
Which is very intriguing because I've never dug in deep to try to find out how they're met. I know they're both from that Northeast area, but maybe just a chance meeting. He considers her a friend outside of the industry, outside of wrestling, and she very much considers him a friend. He's seen her on Broadway. She's actually seen him wrestle. So wow. It was interesting. So, I don't know if they're still friends or anything, but I just remember an interview where that specifically came up. I wish I could have asked her about it, but like I said, I just do the faux ops.
Yeah.
And that's more like cattle herding. It's like, here you go, smile, and snap, smile, and snap. So all I could say was like, I told her I was a big fan, and she'll always be Ren Stevens to me.
Very nice. Yeah, I've often wondered, does John Cena actually have any friends?
Well, I imagine, him, his brothers and all that stuff, but I hear more. As people may know, I absolutely abhor reality TV. So only reality TV I get are commercials during Raw and SmackDown and what people tell me. And every guy I know thinks he's an incredible tool. And every woman I know, of course, thinks he's attractive. But yeah, apparently he's incredibly difficult to live with. Like I said, he's like his people that he hangs out with are like Michael Cole. Like that's who he used to ride with, and Funaki. And, and he even says he hangs with the Vince McMahons of the world because he's so busy. And I think he does mean it to come off arrogant that other people would slow him down because he needs to be busy all the time. And I was just like, I really want to know how much he enjoys life, because you're so busy building something. I guess you don't get a chance to enjoy it, but maybe what he does every day is just what he loves to do. He loves being John Cena.
Well, I hope so, man. I hope the guy is happy. But from everything I've also heard, he's a complete douche. But I will say, he was absolutely hilarious in both Trainwreck and Sisters.
Yeah, I don't think he would allow himself to be recorded being bad at something.
Probably not.
With his work ethic, he probably worked every day to make sure he was as good as he could in those scenes. I'm not hating on his work ethic. I'm just saying, because he's that guy, he's not going to let him. If he was bad, he would have dropped out of the movie.
Yeah, I agree. So was anything else from WizardCon?
I met some really cool people, and that's my favorite part, is standing in the lines and talking to people. I know some people hate lines, but I love them because you already have something in common in the line. You're in the line, standing, waiting for the same person. You generally have an interest, so it's easy to spark up a conversation. The artists, some of the original things I saw. This guy does art on glass work. I mean, if I had, I definitely stuck to a budget. But if I had $1,000 and that $1,000 ain't nothing to me, it would have been gone in like an hour. Because I saw so many cool things. Something you would like. They took sci-fi people and they put them on albums and gave them album art.
Oh, so, nice.
Like this one album, the one I specifically remember, it was called The Rickman. And it was all of Alan Rickman's characters in like an album art. And then on the side, back side, it had 10 songs, like an A side and a B side. and it was songs based on his characters. Like the first song I remember was called "Always" as a ode to his Snape Harry Potter character. It was so cool how it was done.
Oh man, that's fantastic.
And they did one the Doctor Who's, and it was all of the Doctor Who's. And then the other one I remember is, again, for the Harry Potter fans out there, it was the Padfoot Wormtail Mooney. It was them as a band, and it was really, really cool.
Oh man.
Yeah, the one of their album was called Mischief Managed.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah.
And it was one of those things. I tell you, I didn't know where you fell in the sci-fi range and what you were into. I literally was gonna buy you one. I just didn't know which one to get you.
Oh, thanks, man.
Because you're very much the music person, and I was like, this is like Dave, but I didn't know your strong pop culture references, so I didn't know which one to get.
It's a thought that counts. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Yeah, man, I've been to 2 conventions in my lifetime, and they were both Star Trek conventions back when I was in junior high. I was a big Trekkie back then, and I may actually go to WizardCon next year. I may have to save money aside and do that, because I think I would probably have fun if the crowds aren't too god awful, and I can. I mean, how are the crowds at a con in Oklahoma?
This might be why they're moving from Tulsa, because it was very much walkable and movable. It was spread out. It was awesome yesterday and Friday. And for them, they probably not making the money they want to make. But for us, the fan, it was perfect. It was like I could go to any booth I wanted to and be within five people from the front and see everything without people breathing on you and bumping into you. Last year was so busy I couldn't leave quick enough. This year we were just hanging out.
Nice. Well, I will have to keep that in mind, because that sounds like a great time. Yeah, man. Well, I guess we should probably talk about some wreshling.
All right. So, you know what? That's good. I can always do that.
So what do you want to get into this week? There was I had a hard time watching everything this week. I did watch most of SmackDown because after you gave it such huge thumbs up, and I watched parts of Raw. I did see the Goldberg part. So I know we want to talk about Goldberg, but I didn't know if you wanted to work your way into Goldberg or how you wanted to go. I'll let you.
My honest thoughts on Raw, I'm just going to hit a little bit on it, is that even though it wasn't what you would call a great episode, I felt like it flowed really well and I wasn't bored. And, from beginning to end, from match to match, how they basically the format of the episode kept me somewhat interested. But I wouldn't have said I was blown away with it. I didn't get sleepy or anything like that. And by the time it was all building up to Goldberg's coming back. And by the time he came, by the time that started, which we'll talk about in a second, it was just okay, interesting. It's already time for that. Jericho again was amazing, which is awesome. A problem. Again, I have and I will always have until somehow it's fixed. The repetitiveness of Sasha's interviews. I know when she was a little girl, she watched Eddie Guerrero, and this is all she's ever wanted to do since she was a little girl. And she's so much stronger on the mic when she's the heel boss character instead of being this face Sasha Banks bland character. Which, I mean, if you're a new fan or a casual fan, that this is your first aspect of Sasha Banks, you will probably think she sucks on the mic. Because she just says the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with her if she gets through the feud with Charlotte, because I do think she is going to win at Hell in a Cell. She retains the title, and I think she's going to start feuding with random other people, and eventually it's going to start a slow burn to a heel turn. And I suspect the heel turn is going to be her just attacking and bludgeoning Bayley at some point. And then that will go into a big epic feud with them, which hopefully will culminate at WrestleMania, because that would be a huge moment if Bayley won the title at WrestleMania. And if not, then you hold it off until, especially if SummerSlam is in Brooklyn next year, if you can somehow stretch it out until next SummerSlam and have Bayley win the belt in Brooklyn, since that's such an important town for her, and they could have, another classic match there. But that almost, it's hard to say because there's so much history with them and SummerSlam weekend with Brooklyn, but then that's such a perfect WrestleMania moment. I don't know, but I think we're going to get the boss character at some point, sooner rather than later, and she's just going to, and once she does it, it'll open the casual fans' eyes, and I think that's going to be a good thing.
Yes. Other points, Braun Strowman, they had him against 3 enhancement talents, and Sammy came out, and I was intrigued that they would go with someone against this hulking individual, Braun Strowman. Because either way, it's not, I don't think there's a way to end this feud good, but Sammy can work with anyone, so we'll see.
That doesn't make a lot of sense, though. I mean, if the point is to build up Braun Strowman, why do you do that at the expense of Sami Zayn? Someone who, unless they think Sami Zayn is kind of like Teflon, and we can beat this guy down, and when he does his comeback, it won't matter. People are going to love him. Yes,
Sami Zayn's one of those people. He loses way more than he wins, and it does not matter. People still love him.
So that was a part I did not even see that part.
Sammy might be unburyable.
And if anyone's going to do it, WWE will figure out a way to bury him, which makes no sense because it's you look at that guy and I'm like, okay, that him and Bayley, it's like, how much money do you want these two to print for you? They're going to...
Yeah, he's one of those people, all you would have to do to bury him is make him tap out. I mean, he's one of those people that's his thing. Him and Bayley, I mean, they don't give up, they don't quit kind of thing. But I still think, like I said, you could do like the Redemption Project like they did with that NXT storyline, and everybody would be fine with Sami Zayn winning every match. He's the streaky wrestler of the WWE.
Yeah, I can see that. And I guess putting him with Braun Strowman at least is doing something, because they have dick all for him right now. I mean, they've got him doing nothing.
Yeah, Big Show said, I read about Big Show saying that he would be down with putting him over. He's very much, when Vince and all of them have something for him to do, he'll do, and he's okay with not winning right now. He doesn't need to be the star, so I see the Braun Big Show feud coming soon. They may just be trying to hold it off for a second.
Yeah, that definitely, that's going to have to happen at some point. We know it won't be at WrestleMania because Big Show's going against Shaq. But because that needs to be the send-off. Big Show's send-off is, because he's at the point, he can retire any day now. He needs to put over Braun Strowman, and just that be it. He called it a day. And thank you for your service, Paul White. We appreciate everything you've done. So lay down for this fool, make him look like $1 million, and let's move forward. Anything else from Raw before we get on to what Raw was really about the entire episode?
No, because like I said, it was a very unmemorable episode of Raw. Hold on, I don't remember if it was this episode. Yes, I very much need to talk about this. Dana and Bayley. Dana wins the match against Bayley, and you can tell the way she was supposed to win the match was on her foot on the rope. Dana is so short and has no ring position awareness whatsoever. She's reaching with her foot and completely misses the ropes, so she gets a clean victory over Bayley.
Oh.
They have to fix that. They have to fix her. And I honestly, and it sucks to me to say this because I think she's great, energetic, and has a personality. She really needs to go back to NXT for a minute because she wasn't ready when they brought her up, and it's coming clear that she isn't ready.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. They need to do either for her, if she needs to go back to NXT to do in-ring stuff and still travel with Raw and be a mouthpiece, because she's got that down pat. She can be a manager, valet, mouthpiece that occasionally gets physical. She can do that. But if we're talking about her still being a viable in-ring contestant, then that she needs so much more work. And I think she has so much upside. She is a great talker. Because she's so annoying. You just desperately want to hate her. She is very athletic. So she's picked up things really well. She is, as bad as she is now, she's so much better than she was when she first started. And it was nice when I did see her entrance. It was nice seeing her do the flip thing again. Mm-hmm. She hasn't done that for a while, so that was kind of cool. So yeah, but she needs to go back to NXT, or they just needed to say, okay, Dana, we're gonna have you. You're not gonna wear tights anymore. You are a valet mouthpiece person, but one that occasionally gets physical.
Yeah, I know they're trying to really go away from that, and I get it because of what Stephanie's trying to do. But her chemistry with the club was so good that I just thought that was going to be a natural fit, and they went away with it.
Yeah, that was outstanding.
Yeah, I thought her chemistry with them. I think it took somewhat boring characters to a point, the club, which they're amazing wrestlers, but of course it doesn't translate on WWE. And you gave them an interesting mouthpiece. And you know what? Trish started off as a valet. Lita started off as a valet. And they got time to get better. Because she could valet for them, the Raw, and then spend the rest of the time in NXT getting better.
Exactly.
And she's not being in the ring, so people won't notice how not good she is right now.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. So, Goldberg, Oldberg, as I call him. Key points. Love the pop that he got. Love that the crowd didn't crap on him. But yeah, he looks like a 50-year-old man. In great shape, 50-year-old man. But still a 50-year-old man. I feel like he wore the leather jacket and zipped it up to hide his pre-match physique. And other than that, he gave the hero coming back type promo, and he says it feels good to be a superhero again, which I completely understand that comic book reference. I thought that was over. I try in this role that I have as podcaster, I am going to try to be as even as possible, but I absolutely hate Goldberg. He ended Brett's career. I can't let that go because it's Bret Hart, one of the best wrestlers ever. He can't even really train because, literally he's not allowed any physicality that goes to bumping. So really, really don't like Goldberg. But I imagine he's going to take some supplements, and he's going to put on about 20, 25 pounds of muscle before the match. That's the only way I buy the match being close. So he really is going to have to put in the time and get in the in-ring shape. And I love it for the kids that didn't get to see him wrestle. Yeah, I agree. I think I think we're going to see, he probably will do some extracurricular substances to make sure he is fit and in good shape, because everyone has this expectation of what he looks like in his trunks, because he looked awesome. He had a great physique, and he's really got to get that back. Otherwise, it's going to be real sad, and it's going to also be completely, unbelievable. I mean, it's already pretty darn unbelievable as it is, because you've got Brock Lesnar, who is just Brock Lesnar, and then you've got Goldberg, who hasn't been in a ring in 12 years, and who may or may not work out. I mean, he looks like he hasn't let himself go, but I agree. I think he was wearing all those clothes, which he was sweating like a banshee, because he's, probably not cut and ripped. I thought the promo itself, I thought, was great.
Yeah.
It was very heartfelt. I think he was kind of taken aback by the response. I loved this response, too, because there was a really good possibility of him walking out in the crowd going, "Who are you? And why do we care?" Because, yeah, sure, there's the legend of Bill Goldberg, but we're literally in a new generation of fans, a lot of which were too young or not alive to have seen Goldberg in his heyday in the ring. It's probably a good chance that maybe one person in that arena saw him wrestle in WCW live.
Yeah.
Now, there might have been about 5 or 6 that watched episodes of Nitro that he was on as they happened. But
the big thing I've gathered from fans and passionate fans, if the passionate fan population is big enough in any arena, whatever they start chanting, the casual fans will echo. The passionate fans that night were into Goldberg. A lot of people that didn't know who Goldberg were cheering for Goldberg because the passionate fans were.
So what'd you think of because he did the whole, we're going to follow him from back in the dressing room to the ring, which is still hold out from WCW. I'm glad they kind of kept that around. But the whole, him walking out and getting basically a standing ovation from crew and from wrestlers, and a couple of them looked a little annoyed. Like, I'm really got to clap for this old man. But what'd you think about that?
I mean, personally, absolutely hated it. Objectively, it was really, really cool.
Good answer.
It was just the fact that everyone is out there and they were just building him up as this big thing. And he was definitely a phenom. I mean, honestly, they had their moment. Rock had his moment, but nobody burned brighter for the short amount of time than Goldberg did. I mean, Goldberg was like the Undertaker when he first came in, as in that kind of presence. And he seriously looked like what, at that time, what I thought an MMA fighter looked like, because I didn't know a lot about MMA. And he just had this image and stuff to him, and like 50-0 or whatever, I was really into it because it was something we hadn't really seen before. He was doing the press slam and dropping down into the power slam, which was a move that he pretty much brought to America. I hadn't seen a lot of people do. And then he would pull out the rolling leg lock, but he wouldn't do the rolling leg lock like he was actually going to tap you out. He would just do it somewhere in the ring, and it was like his ring style was a collection of random moves, and then he speared and jackhammered you. And it was like I said, he would dominate. I mean, he got pushed to the moon, and it might have been desperation from WCW why they would push somebody that green, but it was captivating, and it was everything. And you legit, even though you knew wrestling would work, you started to believe this man was unbeatable. So, the story, the original story he told was great.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of they got lightning in a bottle, and that was when desperation was starting to kick in, because that was the NWO was really starting to unravel, and things were starting to, you could really see cracks in WCW, and it was starting to fall apart. And then Goldberg held him up for another 2 years before it just all fell apart. But yeah, I remember seeing his first match, and I think it was the first time he used the spear that I truly legit thought he almost murdered a guy. Because, he's a football player, so he hit this fool like he was on the football field, and it was so... I mean, to me, and this is something I think we're going to do a top 5 someday, to our top 5 favorite people who do spears. But I can tell you right now, my number one person on that list for me is Goldberg. I judge all spears based on that one spear that he did to some jobber when he very early on. I don't even remember who it was, but he when he hit them, he lifted them up, and the way he just slammed them to the ground, and the poor guy probably got a concussion. It was so brutal. And also, I think that's the way you should use a spear. I don't see the spear in and of itself as a finishing move. I see it as a great setup for another move.
I completely agree with that statement. I've had that problem with Roman Reigns. I was like, you should do something after it.
Yeah. But, I thought the whole walking through the back with all these people standing there clapping or nodding as Sami Zayn sat there and looked at him, just kind of nodded like, oh yeah, it's Bill Goldberg. And I think it was Cass kind of had a look on his face like, this fucking guy, which cracked me up. But it was a cool visual, and I think it was a good way to show the casual fan and the newer fan the importance of this guy. But speaking of the importance, we have to talk about Michael Cole's insanely insipid comment that Bill Goldberg is the greatest champion in WCW history. I will let you go first on this. What did you think when he said that?
I honestly didn't even acknowledge it because I try my best not to listen to Michael Cole. I really do. I'm going to be 100%. I didn't react to it until the next day because I was like, he said what? Because of all the working relationships they've had with the WCW wrestlers since then, and Booker T works for him, and Sting, they've pushed him through the moon as far as the Hall of Fame, and basically Sting gave his career for the WWE. I didn't think you could say that. And, Ric Flair is an icon. He was a WCW champion. And, if you're basing it on title defenses, right? Mm-hmm. He defended his title 70 times. 70, I think it was 74 times before he finally lost it. So he might have had the most title defenses. But if pretty much Sting was the greatest WCW star, and I can honestly say I don't really remember very memorable title runs when WCW used very much the title as a prop instead of it being this thing that everybody strive for.
Right.
Yeah, because they gave like 100-year-old Ric Flair the belt for the 16th time. And they used it to try to draw ratings. So, that being said, I wasn't as offended because, like I said, how WCW used the belt. And as many, like I said, he might have had one of the longer reigns as WCW champion because no one kept the belt that long.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember any 1 year WCW reigns.
At least during that era of WCW, Hogan might have been the only one.
Yeah. So, like Hogan, when he held the belt with the NWO until he lost it to Sting, was probably the longest title reign. And it's sad to say Hogan was probably the greatest WCW champion.
Oh, I can't. No. Oh,
Well, who would you say?
Okay, well, see, I don't even. To me, Hulk Hogan will always be a WWF guy. I know he was in WCW, and he had second life in his career with the NWO thing. But no, it's... And the other, I think, part of my problem is when I think of WCW, I'm taking the Crockett NWA years.
Yeah, and that was WCW.
That is... So I'm going back to, the 70s, that whole time... And when you look at that, how you do not say that Ric Flair is the greatest champion of that company, I don't. You're out of your ever-loving mind.
Hey, let me just say that I agree with that part of it, but going to the technical. I have been taken to the technical side. My favorite WCW champion, and like I said, I'm trying to be my hardest to be, unbiased, is DDP. Just because of his story. It's right. DDP and then Ron Simmons. I mean, it was Ron Simmons for a long time, but DDP's story made him my favorite world champion. So I was trying to take out my personal, I hate Hulk Hogan in general. I hate Goldberg, and I was finding that I hated most of the WCW, champions or whatever. So that being said, I didn't know, what criteria to say the greatest WCW champion. Hogan had the longest reign of 469 days, and that's me Google cheating it. Don't get me wrong, it's not. That's me literally looking at Google and saying, and it was seriously, after that, I think there was one 200-day reign for Ric Flair, but yeah, and those were the earlier years. But after Hogan debuted, no one else made it to 200 days.
Well, it's because it became the Hulk Hogan show, and that was And see, maybe for me, I really need to separate in my mind the NWA Crockett years from the WCW Turner years. Even because in my head, this is just one company. When you watch the Rise and Fall of WCW documentary on the WWE Network, which is a really good documentary. They go all the way back, and they talk about the history of the NWA, and they talk about the Crockett promotion specifically, because that's what became WCW. And as a kid, when I was into wrestling, I watched more WCW than anything else. It was the Saturday morning on TBS, the Saturday night on TBS. I watched those shows religiously. And to me, that was before the belt became a prop, and everyone really wanted to win the title. And when I think of that title and what became what we think of as the big gold belt, and the lineage of that, and who was the greatest champion, is Goldberg in that mix? Absolutely. And to be fair, Hulk Hogan has to be in that mix, as much as it pains me. Yeah. But, they're not... Flair has to be up there first. Sting has to be up there, if not second, then third. Dusty has to be up there. Ron Simmons has to be up there for the historical significance, and because Ron Simmons is freaking awesome. You have to have...
How long does David Arquette get? Or how high does David Arquette get on the list?
That just needs to be erased from history.
He held the belt longer than Chris Benoit.
And the sad thing behind the Chris Benoit thing, that was, please don't leave, here's the title.
That was and he was like, I'm out.
Yeah, because when he showed up the next night after winning it at the pay-per-view, and they were like, Chris, you can come in, Eddie, Dean, everyone else, you got to go. And Chris said, okay, fuck you. Here's the belt. I'm out.
Yeah, but I'm looking at some stats here. Hogan held it 6 times for almost 1,200 days, and nobody held it half as long as that. Even though him holding the belt was in his contract, which that was one of those things that was the beginning of the veil being pulled from my face, because Hogan held the belt for so long. During the WCW period, when he held the belt the longest, it actually did make the most sense. 469 days, the NWO was so hot. Him holding the belt was perfect at that time.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to see him get his ass kicked, man. And that night when he lost to Luger on Nitro and that place went bonkers, that was just amazing. Just like when he lost to Goldberg. And it would have been that way had they not screwed up the match with Sting. And but that's a whole other story. But yeah, so okay. I
had a thought process that a part of a reason that WCW never caught WWE is because they didn't have a WrestleMania. Because I truly felt like if they had a real WrestleMania, they had, built something up as their WrestleMania and gave Goldberg the title at their WrestleMania, that would have bought them a lot more time. Because the gate that the WWE brings in every year at WrestleMania sometimes can handle their budget for the year.
Yeah, they had Starrcade.
Yeah, they didn't build it up like WrestleMania.
That's true. And the sad thing is Starrcade predates WrestleMania.
Yes, and I definitely understand that. But I'm looking at every other company that has ever came and went away. TNA, WCW, WCW 1, of course, TNA 2, even though TNA has been operating longer. But you look at those things, and the one difference, they sometimes got close, and they sometimes won the ratings. And WCW put everything into their TV. But the difference, the thing that makes WWE, even in a down year, they sell out WrestleMania.
Yeah, that is true.
It's a huge access WrestleMania. It's just this huge weekend where they're pulling in nothing but money. And you know what? When you're in the red, they can bring you to the gray, maybe even to the black. Just think if WCW at that time had something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was at the time, because I never bought pay-per-views, because I just was living at home with my folks, and my parents would never let me do that. Even though WrestleMania 3, I had the money saved up, and they broke my little child's heart, so I had to watch it in Scramble Vision. But I'm not bitter.
Not bitter at all?
Not at all. Anyway, I loved seeing that match on TV. And Bischoff was so much in WCW was really short-sighted because they were in the corporate environment of do whatever you have to do right this second to make the stockholders happy and give you quote-unquote success right now. And that mentality is what really hurt WCW. It's also a similar mentality that is hurting WWE, in my opinion, because you can see by a lot of the things that they've done over the years that is just trying to do quick fixes instead of long-term planning. But I digress.
Yeah, I would say it's the same thing with TNA. Before they brought Hogan and Bischoff in, what they were doing was putting on consistent... I don't know how their money situation was. I really don't. But they were drawing good ratings and putting on a consistent show every week. And their audience was growing from that. And I feel like if they just kept doing that, kept building AJ Styles, kept building Samoa Joe, and kept doing that right now they may have been competing with the WWE. But the fact that they tried to do the quick fix of bringing Hogan in, bringing Booker T and Scott Steiner, all those stuff to try to get faces on it, I think it just ruined their product.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree. And, Booker T, by the way, is definitely in the top 10 greatest WCW champions of all time.
Yeah, and it's like when I look at the list now, there was only 22 champions.
Yeah, especially if you were looking
and there was a couple that I don't really even count. Let's just say they had Kurt Angle as a WCW champion. No. They had The Rock as a WCW champion. No. I'm not counting any WCW titles run in the WWE.
Agreed.
As far as if your only title reign was in the WWE, I'm not counting it. So you only got 20 champions to choose from. It was a lot of the title going back and forth. Like Ron Simmons. Ron Simmons was a one-time champion. Goldberg was a one-time champion, But Goldberg probably had the most significant title win in WCW history. Hogan was, I can't, it sucks, but he was the greatest champion. 1,200 days combined, the NWO storyline, what he did for the company. Like I said, like they said before, and you've probably seen it on the backstage, that was Sting's spot, but they wanted Hogan to take it, and Hogan finally took it. He came out in all black and everything, and it just changed the wrestling industry. So as much as I despise Hulk Hogan, he would be number one. And he's number one by a long way.
Yeah, I will concede. Especially if we're just looking at just the WCW years and not the pre-NWA years.
Oh my God! Yeah, there was Ric Flair. Yeah, it was Ric Flair's belt, and he let a face borrow it every now and then.
Yes, yeah. So if we're just counting when Turner took it, when Turner bought Crockett, and then there was finally they dissolved the relationship with the NWA, and it became the WCW title. From that point until Vince bought the company, objectively you have to say that Hulk Hogan was the greatest champion because it just numbers.
But Hulk Hogan doesn't exist in today's WWE right now, so they would never say that.
Well, he did get mentioned on JBL dropped his name during the main event on SmackDown.
JBL can do that because Vince is scared of him.
Wow, that actually make, because JBL probably could break Vince, especially.
From what I understand, and these are rumors, these are internet things, but based on what he gets away with, I'd have to say that there's a healthy respect between JBL and Vince McMahon, and it pretty much JBL doesn't get yelled at.
That must be nice.
Yeah, so and that I understand JBL does not get treated like everybody else, but he was a part of that group with the Undertaker. He was one of the locker room police. He was one of the guys that if a person wasn't going to do business or wasn't going to do what he's supposed to, JBL went and gave him a talking to. And JBL probably gave him a talking to, and if JBL's talking to didn't work, then he had to talk to Taker. So when you were in that group with the Undertaker and everything, you command more respect than everybody else.
That's true. Well, let's go ahead and move on and talk about SmackDown. So there were only two real things I got from SmackDown because I, honest to God, watched it this morning. It's been a busy week, man. I'm having a hard time keeping up with everything. I'm not even gonna lie. It's because we've got all of our, because every week we've got to watch Raw, SmackDown, NXT. But then I'm a lover of the superhero TV shows, so I'm watching Flash, Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, Lucifer. I've given up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm slowly giving up on Gotham just because I haven't gotten a chance to really watch it.
Yeah, I'm gonna binge watch Gotham. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Right now, of course, my favorite superhero show is Arrow, without a doubt. I mean, it was the originals of this new DC era of TV shows, and it's still my favorite. I haven't given up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I like Whedon's storytelling style. I know it's not Joss Whedon, but it's his brother, but it's still the same style. It's a slow burn style, and I prefer the slow burn.
Yeah, I'm gonna have. I think what I'm gonna end up doing is just at some point. I don't have time right now to watch it. I will probably watch it whenever it hits Netflix, and just watch it at some point then, because it's. And I've watched it since day one, man. I own the first 2 seasons on Blu-ray, though I'm actually contemplating selling those, just so I can buy something else. Because I'm looking at these, I'm like, am I ever going to watch these Blu-rays? Really? I mean, I'll watch.
No, and I was gonna say with Netflix, it's always there. You don't really need Blu-rays anymore.
Well, especially with Netflix's contract with Marvel.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, if they would ever get around to releasing the like Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage on Blu-ray, I would be all over that like stink on poop. I would love to own those. Have those.
I'm done with Blu-rays because I collect them, and then they come out with Blu-ray HD, and now they're coming out with Blu-ray Ultra HD, and it's like technology it makes your collections kind of obsolete fairly quickly. So I just stick with the digital streaming of everything. I have a healthy over 200 movies on Vudu, and I'm okay with that.
I've never used Vudu. Is that a pretty good service?
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, that's where my whole Blu-ray collection is. That's how much I believe in it. Because, like I said, it was just. I mean, I had all these DVDs. I had 150 DVDs, and it was like, now it's Blu-ray. DVDs are old. Okay. Well, all right. Started going to get whatever credit for the digital DVDs. The DVDs I can get. Started getting Blu-rays, right? And they're like, okay, we're going to this next level. I'm like, so I started using the digital codes that I had. Some of them were like years and too old, and they still worked. And just started using those digital codes.
Good thinking.
That's how I built up my collection.
Man, well, I will have to look into that. So on SmackDown, was there? Because we're definitely talking about James Ellsworth, but we'll get to him in a minute. And I wanted to talk about Curt Hawkins, but before we do that, was there anything that jumped out to you on SmackDown this week?
Carmella's in ring with Nikki. Thought it was Carmella's best promo work. I thought she got over as a heel. I just thought it was the best work she ever done. Nikki's reactions and how she kept trying to turn everything. I thought she was gonna make her look bad, right? Mm-hmm. And then Carmella would turn it around every time. And it might be just one of those subtle differences I make, but I felt like it was the most even work she's done, and it was very heel. I actually even tweeted her that. She didn't reply or like it or anything, but it was really well done. I just thought she did a good job. If you may have skipped over it, go back and watch the segment and really pay attention to and more than what she was saying, it was how she was saying it and her comebacks to how when Nikki tried to blow her off.
I will have to go back. I watched part of it, and I will say that just in general, I think she is so much better as a heel, and she's just getting better. She's working to get better, and you can tell she's taking cues, and whoever's giving her advice, if anyone is giving her the right advice. Yeah,
and it's and that's more important than anything. I use this as an example. I was really big on Mr. Kennedy, Ken Kennedy, and back in a few years ago. It was quite a while ago now. But I was really big on him, and I thought he had very much an Austin appeal to him. I didn't think he was going to be Austin, but I thought he had that appeal to him, and he was great on the mic, the loudmouth type thing. And from what I understand, this is like internet rumors, and actually a lot of it's been confirmed about from a podcast. He was getting a lot of advice, but he wasn't getting good advice. So it's more important to get good advice than it is to just, get any advice.
Amen to that. Well, I will say that the thing that stood out, aside from James Ellsworth, who was fantastic, and we'll get to that here in a sec, but Curt Hawkins thing, and I don't even know why I stopped to watch it as I'm kind of fast forwarding through, trying to, okay, what happened? I need to have something I can talk about. But the whole thing with him is he has stolen Eva Marie's gimmick of, I'm going to come out to the ring and someone's going to talk over my music for me, and I'm not going to wrestle ever.
He's making it work. I am very intrigued to watch him wrestle. I am a Curt Hawkins, not necessarily, I wouldn't call him a fan, but I am high on Curt Hawkins, and this gimmick, I think, needed more social media interaction. I think I've said that before. I don't want to be repetitive. I just think they should have been more trying to get the internet behind the whole Hawkins facts type thing, because it's one of those things that could have caught on if done correctly.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens when he finally does wrestle.
Yeah, but, unless it's an impressive debut, you know what I'm saying? You could turn the old IWC against them fairly quickly, and if it happens, it wouldn't be anybody's fault, but the bookers, because it's been booked in a very challenging way to as a wrestling fan to understand what they're doing.
Yeah. And so James Ellsworth, what'd you think of the T-shirt?
I ordered it. That should tell you what I thought of it.
It's a great shirt.
James Ellsworth, is pretty much every 80s jobber wrapped into one, and I am all about it.
Yeah, his promo, I thought, with Renee Young backstage, I thought was really good. I love the moment. The best moment in that match was when he hit that super kick, and the crowd. You would think it was WrestleMania main event. I mean, they were just losing their minds, jumping.
You would have thought it was Shawn Michaels, hitting the super kick. Kind of. And the best thing is having Dean out there actually sold you on the fact that maybe they. But, WWE is very good about their title. They're very good at keeping it fairly prestigious. So I was like, I don't see the title getting on. But it was like 2 times during that match, I thought they might put the title on.
Yeah, it was, and it was a good super kick. I think he's probably actually a lot better wrestler than he shows.
Yes, he is a 14-year veteran of wrestling, and he is a promoter in the Baltimore area. One of his main wrestlers that he promotes on his card, he doesn't ever put the belt on him, but he is a wrestler. He wrestles on the card quite a bit.
So it was. What I love though is that people are really getting behind this guy. The crowd was so into him. He was so over. And
he's the Chicago Cubs of the WWE right now.
You're right.
The lovable loser, man, and it's great, and everybody loves it. I'm with it. I was very much a young fan when the 1, 2, 3 Kid beat Razor Ramon, and this is the closest thing I've seen to this. It's just a phenomenon, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna buy a shirt because I'm gonna do everything I can to support this man, because I know this is not gonna last that long. And you know what? If he can make a few extra bucks, I'm gonna help him as much as I can.
Yeah, I'm almost, because since he's not. My understanding is he's not under contract.
Not at all.
But they would do a T-shirt with him. I think that's really cool. But I think they've also, in a way, I think they've learned from their mistake with the RKO out of nowhere from a year or so ago, when those memes were so hot and they did not do any new Randy Orton RKO out of nowhere T-shirts, and because that could have been huge, and they just dropped the ball on that. And so as this started to take off, well, I think they learned from the failure of that, the success of the New Day taking off, and then as this guy has gotten momentum, I think they figured let's see what extra money we can make, because they're going to make some money off of that shirt. He's going to make some money off of that shirt. My other favorite moment in the match was when AJ went for the chin lock, and And Ellsworth slipped right out.
Yeah, because he doesn't have a chin.
Yes.
It was amazing, and it was so subtly done. A lot of people did not pick up on it. I was about to actually bring it up, so I'm glad you did, and I'm glad that you watch wrestling with the same detail that I watch it. That was just so. AJ, it honestly proved to me. I don't know how good James Ellsworth is as a wrestler because AJ is so amazing. He makes everyone look good.
Yeah.
He sold for Ellsworth, which a lot of people just wouldn't have done.
Oh yeah, can you imagine if WWE had gone to John Cena and said, "Hey, we want you to do this little quick. Since we're in this holding pattern right now, why don't you do this quick little 3-week program with this jobber James Ellsworth that we're going to bring in?" John Cena would have been like, "Screw you, I'm not doing that." Or he would have done it and just made Ellsworth look like a bitch the whole time, and it would have been terrible. But AJ is so professional, and you're right, he makes everyone look so good. If you get in the ring with AJ Styles and you don't come out looking good, you have got to be the worst professional wrestler in recorded history.
That is true.
So that was I enjoyed that.
I mean, seriously, I truly think if you taught me how to bump and you put me in the room with AJ Styles, he wouldn't make me look like $1 million.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, like not knowing anything, you know.
I'm the same way. I think if I could somehow take a bump and you put me in there, I think he would make me look good because he's that stinking great.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anything else from SmackDown for this week?
It was a really, really good show, surrounded mostly by the Ellsworth stuff. A quick point from Rob Schomburger. I don't know if you know who that name is. He does most of the painting and artwork for the WWE whenever you see those paintings on shirts.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was at the convention, and he just was talking about something that made me actually appreciate another wrestler, Naomi. Her high-energy entrance, and then she wrestles a match. He made me really, really respect her. Really made me respect her conditioning because she wrestles a very high energy style. That was just something that was just an interesting point from this weekend that I remembered. Yes, and you may be seeing a James Ellsworth painting fairly soon.
Awesome.
But that was cool. But the big thing is they look like they were building a Swagger and Corbin feud, and I don't know if they just decided that it was stupid or they decided I don't know what they decided. I truly don't. But they just decided to have Corbin bury him, and they did it in an interesting way. He took his head and he put it on the guardrail and he elbowed his head into the guardrail. And I was like, well, legitimately, if you wanted to continue the feud, you could by saying basically, he took an illegal move and injured him. But when you went into Talking Smack, and I have to reference this to Talking Smack, they didn't do anything like that. They pretty much just blew like he dominated Jack Swagger.
Yeah, and that he used that move on somebody else. Was it Apollo Crews?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's messed up because
that's vicious.
It is, and so I will give the man credit. He is a professional in that he's doing a move like that looks like he is, curb stomping some fool and killing him, and he is not hurting these guys. So my hat's off to him because and I know those railings are probably kind of soft. A little bit.
They're pretty stiff.
But it looks so bad. But yeah,
and I think that railing is taking more of the elbow than the person is, but it looks vicious, and that's what I was saying with it just looks vicious. It looks like if he did that to anybody, I would expect them not to be able to put up much more of a fight for the rest of that match.
Yeah. So I wonder where, because we know they're in a holding pattern right now, basically getting ready for Survivor Series. And I think you're going to start to see the Survivor Series teams pull together. So, it's going to be, I'm really hoping that they don't have individual championship matches at that pay-per-view. I really want them to have on the SmackDown team.
There's going to be AJ and Dean at Survivor Series.
I hope not. Those two need to be in that team.
See, and that's the whole thing. I just don't see anything that they are labeling a pay-per-view not having the world title.
They've done it before. I mean, the old Survivor Series matches didn't even have individual.
That is true, but have they done it recently?
No, true. But so it's got to be one or nothing. If Kevin Owens is going to be the captain of the Raw team, AJ Styles has to be the captain of the SmackDown team. You have to have your two champions leading it.
I completely agree.
And
I can't argue against that. You would need, if you're going to do it, and you're going to do this whole thing with Survivor Series, I'd say do all the matches all in with your best wrestlers, and then just let Goldberg and Brock Lesnar finish the show.
Exactly. I mean, you've got your attraction there. You could throw in a cruiserweight championship match. You could throw in you could even bring up you could have an NXT championship match on there, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
Because if you think about, you're going to have Becky lead the SmackDown women's team. You're going to have Sasha lead the Raw women's team as the champions. You'll have Rhino and Heath leading the tag team SmackDown team, and the New Day leading the Raw team.
But I can say the Survivor Series is in Toronto. When it comes down to it, I could see them not going with the title information. But I was going to say they can't do NXT because they're doing a takeover the day before.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how much that place would explode if Bobby Roode came out? If his music hit?
Pretty much how it's going to explode at the takeover of it.
Oh, man.
Takeover, there's so many Canadians on that roster, it's going to be pretty strong.
That is, and you know what? That's a great segue into NXT for this week.
Yes.
So what do you think of I thought there were basically, you had the debut of Roderick Strong, which I think is the big takeaway from NXT this week.
Generation Next from ROH.
Yep.
Him and I was very concerned about Austin Aries getting lost in the NXT. If they push Aries and Strong as a tag team and not as two individual wrestlers, the SmackDown tag division just became the best in the WWE, because you have the best tag team in the world, the Revival. You have TM61, which is amazing. You got the big hulking tag team. I always forget their names.
Authors of Pain.
Yeah, the Authors of Pain. Gargano and Tommaso, the underdogs. And then you add Strong and Aries. That's a stronger tag team division than anyone. You have 5 legitimate teams that you could see being world champions.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's just like, it's so impressive if they stay a tag team. But even if in the end they feud or whatever they decide to do, the best thing about NXT right now is for every wrestler you've brought in from outside to do all this stuff for NXT, and they're still showing up to the Performance Center. And these are people that have wrestled for, I think the minimum is 10 to 15 years. And you have just gotten trainers also.
Yeah.
And I found out this week, another thing, found out from Sean Berger, because he dropped a few good points. Champion Adam Pearce? I don't know if you know the wrestler Adam Pearce. he was an NWA like Wild Side champion. He was big on the indie scenes.
Okay.
He's now agent in the WWE. And some people might know that name, but I did not see anything about him getting signed online. So that was just a piece of information that wasn't brought out.
Well, that's like there's, what's his name, who was part of the Decade in Ring of Honor when Roddy was in the Decade. He's got the big hair. His name starts with an R. God bless America. I can't remember his name. But he's apparently a writer for WWE now.
Really?
Yeah. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it was when the Decade was B.J. Whitmer, Roderick Strong, and this other idiot. Anyway. So yeah, I'm sure there are going to lots of these like long-term people are going to show up in WWE and not necessarily wrestling capacities. But if you think about
Colby
it,
Corino?
No, not Colby Corino. It was pre-Colby Corino. It was
Jimmy Jacobs.
Jimmy Jacobs.
Oh, okay.
There's no R's in that at all.
I can see that because Jimmy Jacobs and Kevin Owens are like really close friends. So Kevin probably made a call for him.
Yeah, and but as far as these guys showing up to the Performance Center, I mean, you figure they have to work out a lot anyway. And you show up in WWE, and you're going to be expected to be in your absolute best physical conditioning.
Yeah.
So you're getting already. You're probably getting maybe not. I mean, you might have gotten some better paydays if you were in a Ring of Honor or New Japan, but you're getting a consistent paycheck to go work out all day long. Who wouldn't go do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's less work on your body. I mean, in the end, they do I believe it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then they're off Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Some people go train on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but they work 4 days a week. And, that's already less of a schedule. And pretty much there's an A team from NXT and a B team. The B team generally stays in Florida, and then the A team travels.
So there were a couple of interesting discussions, kind of with NXT on Wrestling Soup recently, and there was one on Wrestling Soup and then one on Voices of Wrestling, talking about Hideo Itami, and Hideo Itami got injured. And they were wrestling he and Shinsuke were in the Florida Loop, and the discussion this was the Voices of Wrestling guys were talking about this. Why is Hideo Itami and Shinsuke Nakamura? Why are these two guys wrestling in Largo, Florida, in front of 200 people?
They are Americanizing their style, and they are learning to communicate to American audiences. And if you saw Wednesday, Shinsuke, in my opinion, has come a long way on his promos, because it's not a lot about just speaking English. It's more of where the inflection goes and all that stuff. And he put on, I said, a C+ promo, and for me, that's damn near an A. And I just for most people, I thought it was a really got its point across promo at the end of NXT. And it is very hard to do when you don't speak the English as a first language. But he has this presence about him. And I honestly became more of a Nakamura fan Wednesday, because I wasn't any of a Nakamura fan. I became more of a Nakamura fan Wednesday because, anytime someone shows improvement, shows that commitment to working on their craft, shows a commitment to Americanizing their style because they are coming to America, I can start getting behind them a little bit more. So
yeah, it was.
That's what Itami's doing. That's why they have to work those shows. They're also a draw. I think at first they were just using those shows as training grounds, but now they make money. Their names, you can see Teo Itami and Shinsuke Nakamura wrestling, on the weekend, and it's a fairly cheap ticket. It's like a $20 ticket.
Yeah, I think I remember one of the argument was, you put Nakamura on a bill on one of those shows, you're automatically losing money because of how much he probably makes, because he's not making your atypical NXT money. But you're
also getting that money back in gear that he sells.
Yeah, so you're right. I hadn't thought of it like that, because they are still coming a long way in the communicating with the Merc and public. So that makes sense. So yeah.
But my problem is they had a Tommy wrestling Riddick Moss, and he's the one that dropped him on his head. And the problem is with that is that they are really, really green. And I know that's helping them get better, but you're getting some of your stars that you're building NXT around, you're getting them hurt, and you lost a significant part of this tag tournament because you have him working with someone that's kind of green. It could have happened to anybody, of course.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, it would make more sense to have your bigger name draws, the people, especially the people that you see with potential of going to the main roster, of you having them not work with your, spinach green people.
Yeah.
And as much as the green folks could really learn from an Atami or a Nakamura, it's a much better idea. Let's put those guys in the ring with your Ty Dillingers, your Austin Aries, your people who've been around for a while.
The people that they're really working with at the Performance Center, because that's going to make them more comfortable as far as putting on the show.
Right.
And, so like I said, Tommy got hurt, people get hurt. It's sports or whatever. But if you're looking at the bigger picture, make sure you're not putting your guys in a position to where they will get hurt. And that's all I'm saying. It's just not, it's not that, and it's not a huge deal because, like I said, people get hurt. And apparently he says he's going to be at the takeover in Toronto. Or no, he didn't say he was going to be in Takeover Toronto. He said he's going to be at the December Japanese shows. NXT is going to Japan in December, and he said he'll be at those shows.
Oh yeah, and he will. Even if he doesn't wrestle, he'll be there.
No, he said he'll wrestle at those shows.
I hope so. I mean, because it was finally. We talked about this, I think, last week. It was finally, you could see it starting to click, and it was really starting to work for Tommy, and he was coming out of his shell and being more Kenta. And
it was. I think a lot was they took a lot of his moves away because people had stolen his moves before he got there.
Yeah, it's like, okay, now your two main finishers you can't use.
Yeah, so I'm on down to my third finisher or fourth finisher, and I'm just like, you got to let him be him. Let him. I mean, you got to let him be him. You got to let him be the person that you signed.
Yeah, exactly. Because he essentially he adopted the sick kick, which is basically the running knee but with the foot out. He was using that for a long time, but now that Daniel Bryan is full blown retired, he's been able to use the running knee again, and he's been using the GTS because any chance now that WWE can stick it to CM Punk, they want to. So he's been able to use his moves, and that's fantastic.
But my most important thing is he should have been able to use the move from the beginning. The fact that this whole stupid branding thing, it was his move. He named it the GTS. Punk stole it.
Yep.
Everyone knows Punk stole it. Punk was like, I stole it from Kenta in every interview that he did.
Yeah.
So it was like, it wasn't like it was this, this is only associated with CM Punk thing. Anyone, I wouldn't even say in the know, I'd say a lot of casual friends know he stole it from Kenta.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he was so open about it.
And, and Kenta Hideo Itami's GTS is so much more brutal looking. There's a gif of him giving it to Seth Rollins, I guess back in a match in ROH years ago, and it looked like he broke Seth Rollins' neck on it. It was so brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, the biggest thing I was disappointed in was seeing Kenta and Ibushi as a tag team. I was really looking forward to that. I knew it wasn't going to be a permanent thing, but seeing them as a tag team, they both wrestle kind of a physical style. I thought that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's that I was super excited about. I was also just excited about seeing more Ibushi, or Kota Ibushi. I was just excited about seeing him again.
Yeah,
because he is so good. He's
really good.
Yeah, and it's you sit back and you think, okay, so of the modern Japanese wrestlers, the main ones, if you were WWE, you'd want to get. You've obviously got two of them right now in Hideo Itami and Shinsuke Nakamura. You think, who are the other two that you should just really, really get? You got to think it's Kota Ibushi and Shibata. And you get those two guys under contract, and now there are going to be some people like, well, you can't have that many Japanese guys, which is ridiculous. That's like saying you can't have that many white guys or black guys on the roster.
Hold on. Let me clarify. I am one of those guys. My whole thing is, in America, it is very much poor. You can have them in ROH, which is a true wrestling company, but in the WWE, they have to be able to communicate.
Well, yeah, obviously, but and they're getting better. So for example, by the time Nakamura gets to the main roster, and at this point it's just they're waiting until he's communicating better. By the time he gets to the main roster, he's going to be able to communicate, and he's just going to be over like Rover. It's going to be crazy.
If you want to do Shibata at like NXT TakeOver Orlando for the WrestleMania weekend, that was like a one-off. That would be amazing. Because the NXT Orlando, the WrestleMania crowd is a lot more smarky.
True.
So,
but
you could just build up his name to that one match. I'm just saying, if he never wants to sign with the WWE, which is something that could be possible.
Yeah, but with the dynamic right now, because right now, literally within WWE, you could almost think of it as there are three separate companies under this one, corporation's banner.
Yes, because they're all run very differently.
Right, exactly. And honestly, I was a firm believer that instead of, just calling them Raw and SmackDown, they should have been given other names, like some other three-letter name to associate with each show.
They should have been called WCW.
You're right. One of them should have been WWE, one should have been WCW, and then NXT. But obviously that didn't happen because, they hate WCW. Or whatever. But still, you've got three different shows here. So, with that in mind, there is no reason why you couldn't have Ibushi on one, Itami on another, Nakamura on one, or maybe even have Ibushi and Shibata on one show, Itami on another one, and Nakamura on another one. I think. Especially once they're to the point where they can communicate well, or you give them a mouthpiece.
Yeah.
That would be just like we talked about a while back. You get Kevin Owens starting a Four Horsemen type group, and you bring in Itami as the silent assassin part of that group.
Yes, definitely. That would work. That would go so well. I mean, I truly believe right now, the WWE, as far as the fans, are itching for a good, strong faction right now.
Yes.
Because I don't consider the New Day a faction. They're a three-man group. And it's cool, and they're not heel. I mean, when they were heel, it was a lot better. But I think the WWE is like in the perfect mode for a group. And I think the best way to do the group, and it might sound weird seeing as we've talked about them as three separate brands, is to do a group that has both Raw characters and SmackDown characters.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go.
As a group that's really trying to take over the WWE.
And they could have done that with the Bullet Club.
They could have. There could have been a SmackDown Bullet Club with AJ, and you pick up 2 other guys. And there could have been a Raw Bullet Club with Finn, Luke Gallows, and Carl Anderson.
Right. But who knows? Maybe, I mean, the other thing I wanted to talk about with NXT, and it fits in perfectly to this, is Sanity, which are definitely a faction. There are 4 of them, and you had Nikki Cross coming out, and she's got that crazy thing down.
Yes, she is. She has that. I was looking at her and I was like, no one has ever been cast better in a role because she plays it to a T.
She does, and it almost makes you wonder, why didn't they make her Sister Abigail? Unless they want to, either they're never going to do a Sister Abigail or they wanted a different vibe. But yeah, she is so good. And this second outing with Sanity, I actually really liked what I saw. It's going to take me a little bit to take the 2 big guys seriously since they were, jabrones for a while. But this is a great way to rebuild them, and having Eric Young as their
veteran,
the veteran leader, and that is exactly what they need to be doing with these veteran guys that they're bringing in. You were right. I think pairing off Roddy and Austin Aries for a while, you give them even, let's have a heel versus heel tag team feud where they go against the Revival. Can you imagine those matches?
That would be amazing. And a big thing is the Revival. I mean, as much as we love them on NXT, they probably want that main roster money pretty soon.
Yes.
They've been carrying that tag team division for a while. So you're going to need to build up that next group of tag teams to take over after they leave.
Right. And honestly, the main roster, both Raw and SmackDown, are in desperate need.
You cut out for a second. I can't
okay.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I do. It goes. So whatever point you made, I need you to make it again.
Okay. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties, folks. But Raw and SmackDown need more tag teams. Yes. Desperately. So the Revival need to come up, preferably on SmackDown, just because SmackDown's such a better show. And they're really, honestly, between the 2 shows, I think the one that is going to need the newer talent or more talent sooner is definitely SmackDown, because they have such a finite group of people. They're going to run through all of their match options and all of their feuds really quickly. And I think they're doing a pretty good job of drawing stuff out, especially right now, because all individual feuds are kind of on hold, especially main event title level stuff because of Survivor Series. And I think that's going to be a really good thing to help draw out their storylines. But they need another tag team, and I think they need one more than Raw does, because as great as it would be to see the Revival take on the New Day, I think they would have much more compelling long-term feuds in SmackDown.
I would love, and I can't even put enough exclamation marks if they're the one that ends the New Day streak.
Okay, that would be awesome.
I would geek out. That's all I would talk about. I don't even think I'd be able to work because that's all I'd want to talk about.
And that would be the way to do it. You have the New Day come out, they break the record, and maybe even have them break it by a while. They've beaten the record, they've gone through everybody. They come out and they say, we have no one left to fight. And all of a sudden, boom, the Revival come out, still as NXT Tag Team Champions, and say, well, you've never beaten us.
And there you go. And they said most people argue who is the true WWE Tag Team Champions. Yeah, and that would be, because they are the best tag team in the world, without taking brand into consideration.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to say I think it's them and American Alpha. It's 1 and 1A. American Alpha is just so athletic that they draw you in. They don't do traditional tag team wrestling like we grew up on,
Right.
but it's so exciting.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're so good, and they're always in the right spot, and love that.
And
Love that.
which is amazing considering that, Chad Gable's been in professional wrestling for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
He's been doing this compared to so many other people, for about 5 minutes, and he has taken to it so naturally. And
they said the same thing about Kurt Angle. It was like he got in there one day and he got it.
Yep.
And then it's like I think he debuted within a year of taking his first bump.
Man. So yeah, Sanity. I think we both like.
Oh, dude! I think it's exactly what NXT needed. And there was that lull for about a month where I said I was barely watching NXT. And over the last 3 weeks, they have slapped me in the face and said, pay attention.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But I will, for me, because a lot of times I don't watch stuff as it's on. I always watch it after the fact. I will find myself a lot of times, I will watch NXT before I go back and finish Raw or SmackDown. And normally what ends up happening is, if I haven't watched all of Raw, because sometimes depending on my schedule I can finish it Tuesday morning, but if I haven't and it comes down to it, I'm like, okay, the order is NXT, SmackDown, see whatever happened in the main event segment of Raw, and then, or if I see that, oh wait a minute, Ring of Honor had a pay-per-view, crap, I have to find time for that.
I completely, as far as I completely try to stay away from the NXT spoilers because they only record like once a month or once every month and a half. So I really stay away from the spoilers because I do enjoy how the show plays out most of the time.
Me too.
And I don't want to know what happens most of the time. It was like in our little Facebook group, I was like, do spoiler alert or something before you put up NXT stuff. Because I can SmackDown or Raw, whatever. You know what? I'll figure it out. But NXT it's so precious to me. It's such I felt like I got on fairly much the ground floor, and I feel like it's all ours, and it was finally WWE giving us what we wanted.
Precious.
Yes, exactly, and that's how I treat it. If there's an NXT show in driving distance, I'm going to it because I don't want anybody to say anything about that brand.
Yeah, it's my favorite brand currently right now, I'd say.
I honestly say SmackDown, then NXT. The Revival is like, oh my god, but yeah, it's SmackDown, then NXT for me. I just think what SmackDown's doing right now is just. It's so amazing with the talent roster that they have that they are putting on clearly the more compelling show.
That I have to agree with. And now let's get on to this week's top 5. So it is top 5 guys who look like they would legit kill you. This is one of your ideas. It was a good one. I liked it. I had to put a lot of thought into this.
I did too, and I actually have honorable mentions.
All right, so who are your honorable mentions?
They are, and like I said, there's very specific times for, like, on these, because you have to look at Kane when he debuted. That's one of my honorable mentions. Like I said, he was on the supplements. I've said that before, and he was about 350 pounds, just solid. I mean, he could barely move. I remember some of the moves just looked like so ugly when he did it because he was so muscle bound and couldn't move. I was actually scared of Kane. Taz, ECW Taz.
Oh, that's a good one.
He's the smallest person on my group, but he's one of the few people that are smaller than me that I probably would not walk down a dark alley at the same time as, because when he did a promo or how he sold his matches, it looked like it might not have been real, but it was real to him. And terrifying man. And then Scott Steiner after when he cut off his hair and he came back from the back injury and joined the NWO, he came back so I ain't never seen someone that wrestled be that cut. His muscles had muscles. And I just felt like if he just hugged you, he would break you in half.
I remember when he cut his hair and made it blonde, because I was a huge... the Steiner brothers are one of my favorite tag teams of all time. I think they're more importantly, though, I think they're one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Quite possibly number 2 behind the Road Warriors. So I always liked him, but then when he showed up in the NWO rendition of Scott Steiner, there was something I just didn't like. He looked so roided out, especially as his legs got tinier and tinier over the years. But yeah, no, he looked like he'd hug you and you would die. It was, yeah, he's a scary fool. I'll give you that. All right, so well, let me tell you my honorable mentions.
Yes.
Okay, so one of them I'm actually, because I was thinking about these this morning and I was really racking my head, and so a name that came to mind, and the more I think about it, I don't know if I'd actually leave it on the honorable mention, but since I wrote it down, I'll mention him. Silas Young. Silas Young is a guy I would not want to piss off in a bar.
That look on his face puts him as an honorable mention.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Okay, good. Now I don't feel so bad. My other honorable mention is Asuka. I legit think she probably can kick the ass of the entire NXT roster, male and female.
I agree, and I want to apologize for any women that may have listened. I did not put any women on my list, and now that you brought up the first woman, I kind of feel like an asshole because I feel like Nia Jax should be on my list.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. I look at Nia, and physically she's imposing, but she has this beautiful smile, and I've seen enough backstage stuff with her. She seems like the sweetest girl. She just seems like a super sweetheart. So,
but when she gets into Nia Jax mode and come out there and it has that look on her face, oh my God! And and a lot of it I think does have to do with her being Samoan too. Yeah. It just looks like she could rip your throat out. Yeah. And like I said, I kind of have to apologize. Her and Awesome Kong.
Well, you can now make them your honorable mentions, last minute additions.
There you go.
Because Asuka's the only female on my list.
Well, you know what? She made the list, so much due respect for you for thinking out. You got out. Yeah, you got outside the box with that. I thought Taz was my outside the box guy, but Asuka, yeah. I mean, seriously, she does that little creepy smile type thing when she comes out, and yeah, just creeps me out.
Yes. Okay, who is your number 5?
Number 5. Again, I like to start. I'm an '80s guy, so I like to start with a guy. And for a very short while in the '80s, he was my favorite wrestler because he did this move that I thought was the coolest move ever. It was called the Russian Sickle. It was the Russian Nightmare, Nikita Koloff.
I love that Russian Sickle, man, because the way he would hold his arm and he would get that right under your chin. In retrospect, thinking about that, you wonder how many guys got whiplash or concussions from taking that move.
I imagine a lot did. But physically, and with the shaved head, the beard, physically, he was so imposing. It was just immediately in the ring with anybody, you bought him winning because he just looked like a man that could fight.
Yeah, he was so good.
And you know what? It's funny because even if you look up a picture now, he's still physically imposing. He comes from a different day where he lived his gimmick, that he loved Nikita Koloff so much. He changed his name to Nikita Koloff and only spoke with a Russian accent and actually learned to speak fluent Russian. And he lived his gimmick.
Wow. He legally changed his name to Nikita Koloff?
Yeah, Nikita Koloff. His legal name is Nikita Koloff.
He didn't change it back afterwards?
No.
Wow.
His legal name, to this day, is Nikita Koloff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally forgot about him because I loved him growing up. When he was a heel, you just wanted to hate him, and that sickle and those matches he had with Luger and Sting, and then when he went face and he was going against Flair, and he had some good matches. He and I forget who his partner was against the Road Warriors.
Yeah, Ivan Koloff.
Yes. Oh, but still my heart, man. You made me smile. That's some good stuff right there. Yes. My number 5 is one of our Japanese entrants, and it is the aforementioned Shibata. He scares me, and I don't know if it's just he is this ridiculously good-looking guy who looks like he will smack your face off. But when he goes into that angry face, that stern, he almost has a dead face. And plus he's one of those strong style guys that, being in the ring has to suck against. So yeah, he's from what little I've seen of him in the last couple of years, he just is scary. All right, so who's your number 4?
Number 4. I went with the tag team. I went with, again, 80s, 90s, the original badass tag team, the Legion of Doom. Hawk and Animal, or the Things. They would have been the things of my nightmares if I didn't want to grow up to be them so bad. And it was like when they first started doing the Doomsday Device, they didn't know how to flip the person over, so a lot of guys landed on their necks, and they were just so intense from the very moment. They would jump the guy as soon as the bell rang or before the bell. I mean, the Authors of Pain are doing a great type of ode to them right now, but that physique that the Road Warriors have, a long time before the wellness policy, guys look like Animal and Hawk, but actually they were the first guys to look like that. And then they explained the whole Mohawk thing where they wanted it to look like a plug going into each other, like they were one and the same. And the LOD was LOD, the Road Warriors, whatever you wanted to call them, was the most physically imposing tag team ever.
I didn't even think about tag teams, and now that you mention that, they should be on my list. They were the greatest tag team of all time. I mean, they completely changed tag team wrestling, if not wrestling in general, forever. They were a draw as a tag team. People paid money to see them tag team wrestle, and most of the time their matches did not last that long. Yeah. And no one else in history won the AWA, NWA, WWF, and WCW tag team championships.
They held every major title that they could.
Yeah. Real quick, side note, trivia question. Who is the only person, while the pre-Vince McMahon buying the company, to have held the WWF World title, the WWF Intercontinental title, the WCW World title, and the WCW United States title?
I don't know, the Big Show or the Giant?
Nope. Bret Hart.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. All of the other ones, like Flair had 3 of the 4. The Giant had 3 of the 4. But yeah, it was Bret Hart pre the company, buying out WCW, was the only person to hold all 4 of those titles.
Well, you can say this is a new trivia question that I found out this morning. Hulk Hogan, just for people out there that like to throw trivia questions, is the only person to hold the WWF title and the WCW title for longer than 400 days.
Wow, that is sad and impressive all at the same time. Well, let's get back to the list. Sorry, if I didn't say something, I was going to forget that. My number 4 is, I'm going to butcher his first name because he's my other Japanese entrant, Tomohiro Ishii, the former, if not current, never openweight champion.
Yes, I know this is yours. But the fact that he's not on my list makes me want to slap myself because I saw him. What is the big show at the beginning of the year?
Wrestle Kingdom.
I saw him at Wrestle Kingdom, and I saw him, and I was like, "Good Lord, he literally looks like a Yakuza hitman."
He does, and his headbutts. Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, he is. He's a scary individual because he's not ripped, he's not cut, but you are looking death in the eyes when you see that man.
Yeah, he looks like if he's the guy. If he shows up at your house, you are dead. Say your goodbyes. Tell your wife where you hid the money because you're dead.
Exactly. Yep. All right. So number 3.
Number 3, Braun Strowman, and he was 3 on my list because, like I said, he was big. He's been big. He is a former power lifter. That's what he does. But when I was in the WWE shop at Romania, and I'm walking, and he's standing there, and he looks to the left, and I look to the left, I turn, and I back up. This man's not within 5 feet of me. He is not in reaching distance, but he is such a huge presence. I've always said Big Show's the largest man I've ever seen, right? Mm-hmm. Braun Strowman is not taller than a Big Show. He is not wider than a Big Show, but he is the largest man I've ever seen. And I'm like, everything about him. He looks like he could crush you with a handshake. And he is just massive. Let me tell you, he is a big smiling goofball. Don't get me wrong. But when he gets into that Braun Strowman type character, and he's like Braun, and you see that just look on his face, and like when he fought the 3 guys, I was like, dude, you need 3 more guys, and I still don't think it's fair.
All right, yeah, good choice. I keep seeing that picture of him in the when he was a Rosebud. So but when you're right, when he goes into Braun Strowman mode, he is scary, and he was almost on my list. Now, was he the guy a few years ago? WWE made a big deal about this. They signed this guy who was huge, who had these just ginormous hands. Is that Strowman, or was that somebody else?
I think that's Strowman.
Okay. Because that seems time-wise to fit. And, he's picked up, since, coming from powerlifting, not being a wrestling guy, he's picked it up really quickly.
Yeah, he's such, like I said, his size, he's such a freak of nature.
My number 3 is Big Van Vader.
All right. And, yeah, definitely. Vader, with me, was more of the stories that were told by him, about him, that scared me than him being physically imposing.
Yeah, I think to me, it's, and we might even just be coming at these lists a little bit differently, because I think of the mystique, the aura of the person, plus their physicality. And so it's the stories of Vader, and the fact that his slaps could probably collapse a lung, that make him, so to me, terrifying. But yeah, I would not, even to this day, I mean, I know he's an old man now, and my hat's off to Will Ospreay for getting in the ring with him, but nope, no thank you. I'm not gonna do it. Wouldn't be prudent at this juncture. So who's your number 2?
All right, and I was going to say another thing is when Mick Foley says it's not that he doesn't want to pull punches, he doesn't have the ability to pull punches. He just knocked the crap out of you. And I was like, yeah, I would have never wrestled Vader. 2, the man we talked about earlier, I absolutely hate his guts. I hope Brock Lesnar suplexes him 32 times. Goldberg. But I cannot deny the physical presence of Goldberg. The first time I saw him, I said WCW champion.
I remember the first time I saw him, and because he was already in the ring when Hugh Morris comes out. I was like, who is this Stone Cold ripoff? That was my first thought. Because he looked like, he's black trunks, bald, got a goatee. Like, what? They're trying to make a new Stone Cold? What's up? And then I watched it, I was like, oh, shit. That's. And from that moment on, all of us who saw that were like, damn, who is this guy? So yeah, he's not on my list, but good choice. Good choice. My number 2, Haku. Also known as Ming.
Yes.
He's just he's scary. I think a lot of what this list boils down to is, do you scare me? And he scares me. And I've heard that he is legit. Most wrestlers of the day were terrified of him.
He bit a dude's nose off. Confirmed by him. He's like, he wasn't thinking, and he was a little drunk, and he just kind of did the first thing that he thought to do.
Jesus. He was only a little drunk. Oh, what would have happened had he been real drunk?
Apparently he is violent, and apparently he's one of the few people Andre the Giant was afraid of.
That's saying something. Just size alone makes Andre... Yeah. So who's your number 1?
Number 1, Beast Incarnate. Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, he's my number 1 too. There's
not enough adjectives to describe how scary this man is and how he has dominated 2 sports. The physical condition that he's in every day. He runs 5 miles a day at his size. He, at one point in his career, his finisher was a shooting star press.
I wonder if he could pull that off today.
I don't know. But I know he was every bit as big as he was now, and he could do a shooting star press.
Except to Kurt Angle at WrestleMania.
He didn't. You know what? Let me say this, and I was there, and so believe me, I thought he died. I can honestly say this about the shooting star press. If you're not doing it every day, you can get out of practice. And I'd seen him do it at that distance at an Oklahoma City house show. He did a shooting star, had it out in the middle of the ring, and did the shooting star press. So I knew he could do it. And it was his actual finisher in OVW. So he hadn't done it in, according to the story, he hadn't done it in about a year and a half.
If that's the case, why at some point didn't he go, okay, we got to practice?
You know what? He might have pulled it off, but it was just, he was doing it at the end of a very physical match. As great as his conditioning is, people still get tired. And it only takes not getting a little extra spring. Just think, he didn't miss it by that much.
Yeah.
He was almost over. And it was funny, like they said, if that was somebody like Billy Kidman or someone else that did the shooting star, it probably would have killed him. But because his neck was so developed, it hurt a little, and then he was ready for the next day.
Jesus, that's insane. That's that's crazy. To me, I think the moment that made me go, "Holy God, this man is terrifying." It was actually a recent moment. Was when he was feuding. When he tore apart that car that Jamie Noble and Joey Mercury had, and he legit ripped the door off that car. Aside from the fact that you watch him when he wants to springboard into the ring and just vault over, and one time he just vaulted over the guardrail. It just looked like it was no big deal. Just whoop, and he's so fast, so scary fast. Because he can go from the come out and on that stage area and hit the ring within a matter of a few seconds. It's like that. That's a big thing with Goldberg. Big thing with Brock Lesnar. You couldn't even run.
if you saw him at the end of the alley and be like, man, I'm about to run, by the time you actually got the energy and turned around to run, he has caught you and is beating.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's...
Yeah, and then what he did to people in the UFC, some of the times in the fights, he would just, like, manhandle them. Like, it was just one fight against Heath Herring. He just basically took him down, got on top of him, pulled his arm down, and beat on his head. And it didn't even look like it hurt. It didn't look like he was getting empowered. But at the end of the first round, his face looked like somebody had been beating on him for like 3 days.
Oh, man.
And I just said, Brock Lesnar, human being, scary, is just like the most dominant crossover athlete as far as wrestling and pro wrestling ever. It's not even close. Hats off to Ken Shamrock for being the first, but it's not even close.
Yeah, no. And for all the hyperbole that JBL likes to spout, his line about the most decorated combat sports athlete ever, he's right. There's no one else that's won the WWE Championship, the IWGP Championship, and the UFC Championship.
And was an NCAA national champion amateur wrestler.
Exactly.
Turned down a guaranteed spot on the Olympics because it doesn't pay money.
Man, see, so that's why he never went to the Olympics?
Yeah. He's always been about the money.
Man. That's incredible. Well, that's pretty much it. So I was thinking for next week's top 5, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but in honor of the return of Goldberg, I think we should next week do our top 5 favorite people who do the spear.
And it's funny because I'm definitely gonna do it. I hate the spear as a move.
Oh, I'm there with you. I actually, I'm thinking. I mean, I've got like my top 3 were real easy to figure out, and then after I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah, I got 4 people off the top of my head. One I absolutely hate, so I would have to find someone else that does it. But yeah, I definitely, it's going to be a fun list because I'm actually going to have to pull up some YouTube videos and do some research to come up with this answer. And it might have been people that might have only used it once in a special occasion, and it looked really good.
There's nothing wrong with that. Because I'm legitimately thinking of putting Mil Muertes on there because he hit a wicked spear recently on Lucha Underground, and so I'm contemplating that.
For a future one, top 5 salesmen in the WWE, and by salesman, not Paul Heyman salesman, people that sell moves really, really well.
Oh, that's a good one. And I've got another one for a future. Top 5 spine busters.
Well, you know who my number 1's going to be. But, hey, the other 4 will be fun.
Yeah, we almost should put an asterisk other than Arn Anderson.
And you know what? Honestly, that should be the list. But we should save a little time at the end to talk about how awesome Arn Anderson's was.
Oh, yeah. It really was. But top 5 sellers. I like that. Yeah. Now, are we just going to keep it in WWE?
No, I honestly say if you've seen somebody that I've never heard of, that would make the list even better.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to think real hard then.
Yeah, I'm gonna have some fun with it whenever we decide to do it. I'm gonna have some fun with it because it's probably gonna make me watch some matches and watch some people that I'm not very familiar with because I want to get an actual comprehensive list because I think selling is probably, other than bumping, probably the biggest part of wrestling.
Absolutely. If you can't sell, then you shouldn't be in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that is going to do it for this week. Man, you got anything else you want to bring up or talk about before we get out of here?
No, it was a very good week in wrestling. Someone has mentioned to me that this is right now, it's just a really good time to be a wrestling fan. I completely agree, but I also think it's a really good time to be a television person, the people that like TV, so that to actually running into each other quite a bit for me.
I'm preaching to the choir. I'm right there with you. I think as much as we all love to complain about WWE, as in-ring talent, the quality of in-ring talent from WWE across the board has never been as good as it is now. But I mean, considering it's a generation of folks that for the most part grew up watching Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, and these were the guys they wanted to emulate. So of course we're going to have just tremendous wrestlers. So yeah, and yeah, on top of that, TV is so damn good right now. It's so good, and it's so hard to follow everything. I need more time.
It really is.
I need
a lot of shows, I will say, like I'm waiting till either the mid-season, that December break, and I'll binge watch them, or I'm going to wait until after the season's over. And I know that sucks because, that might get a show canceled, but it's really all I can do.
Oh, yeah, I'm right there with you. There are two shows that I have followed for, Vampire Diaries. I have followed since day one. I've not watched a single episode this season, and I've decided that since the CW has this new deal with Netflix, 2 weeks after the season's over, the show's going to be on Netflix. Over the summer is when I'm going to watch the final season of the Vampire Diaries and the current season of Supernatural. There's not enough time in the day. I got kids. I need this job. I really want that shirt at some point. I've inadvertently added that to things I say at work. Like people, no joke. I'm helping these people yesterday in fact, taking them to a back quiet area in the library, giving them a little office area to work in. And there was a big event going on at the branch, so there were tons of people in the parking lot. And they said they pulled up, and they were like, yeah, we pulled up, we saw these people. Like, oh, no. I said, no, what you need to say is, oh, yes, people are using the library. Because if they stop, then they'll tell their politicians we don't need this anymore. And then I lose my job. I got kids. I need this job.
That's funny. Heath Slater is so over right now.
He's so hot right now.
I can't wait till the first time I wear my James Ellsworth shirt to work, because he doesn't look like a wrestler at all. So people are going to be like, why are you wearing that shirt? That's going to be hilarious.
And the other brilliant thing about that shirt is it's just his picture. It looks like some random shirt somebody could have made.
It almost looks like a mugshot almost.
It is. So if you have it in your pocketbook to do so, show James Ellsworth some love. Buy that shirt. Let WWE know that we love this guy.
It's not just making a rich man richer. It's a dude that literally does this for a living. Feeds his kids. He doesn't have a contract. He pretty much is going to get paid based on how this shirt sells.
Yeah. And if you can find it, right after he was on Raw in that match against Braun Strowman, he did an interview on Wrestling Soup that was really good. So I'm not sure if it's still on their website or if you have to be one of their Patreon donors to get to the back episodes. But if you can find that interview somewhere, ladies and gentlemen, I highly suggest checking it out. Because it's really, really good, and he seems like the just coolest guy. And on something I know Floyd you might not know, but if his entrance music that he had, which I love that they actually gave him entrance music and a thing on the screen, but if you listen to it, it sounds a lot like The Offspring, because The Offspring are James Ellsworth's favorite band.
Interesting. Yeah. I did not know that. That's kind of cool, even though I don't know anything about The Offspring.
I actually kind of hate The Offspring, but he likes them, and I thought it was cool that the song sounded like them. So that's going to do it for this week Around the Ring. We will be back next Sunday to preview Hell in a Cell for the way too many pay-per-views we have to deal with every month now, and whatever else hits the fan between now and then. So in the meantime, Floyd, have yourself a great week. It's good talking to you as always, and we will see you guys next weekend.
Hey, watch wrestling, everybody. See you this weekend.
You've been listening to Around the Ring on the Spark Radio Network. All you have to do is change your point of view. And Bo Reed.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
This sucks more than anything that I've ever sucked before.
What? It's for charity.